In this lesson, we're going to be evaluating what illustrations we need for our infographic and making a list of those so that we don't over-illustrate. Okay, so we're just starting off here at the very top, and I would like to just kind of go through here and mention the things that we are going to be creating. Now, if I was doing this, for the very first time, I would go ahead and just write these down. So you could jot them down in a Word document, whatever you need to do to get that list as something that you actually wrote down and not just something that's in your head, because sometimes you can, still overdo it. So I'm going to just kind of say up here, we probably need a piece of coral just to go along with this, saying that coral has a symbiotic relationship. So we'll have a piece of coral right there. We'll probably have another piece of coral right here as well. This is still talking about coral, and since rainforest is kind of the call out there, we'll maybe do a green piece of coral just to kind of help sort of reinforce that. And then here we're talking about types of sea turtles, so maybe have an illustration of a sea turtle here. That I think that would be really nice. So I would write down, we need at least 2 pieces of coral so far and a sea turtle. And then I'm going to just keep kind of coming down this row here. And this is probably, we could probably move this up just a little bit if we wanted to. And I think that we could add a really nice row of coral right here, because this area is kind of, it's shifting in tone, but we haven't really had a big picture or piece of coral. So I think we could draw some really nice coral to kind of go behind this yellow bar here. And then once that shift has changed, kind of behind this bar, I think we could use some of that same coral, but change the coloring of it so that it's a lot lighter, and you kind of get that idea of that coral bleaching. So we talk about coral bleaching here in this paragraph, and it just kind of really just help to drive home the change and show that coral being much less vibrant at that point. And then one of the things that you'll know if you've read over our Word document is that if you kind of scroll down through here, we have this bullet list, and it's for what kind of comes under here for what are the causes of the damage. And I think it'd be really nice to design some icons for these things. So instead of just listing these out, as words, maybe changing the type, we've done so much with typography, let's go in and make kind of a visual representation of some of these things that you need to look out for that are dangers to coral. So it looks like there's about 10 of these here. So we need to create 10 icons for each of those. And I know that we said, we want those 2 pieces of coral at the top, but we could probably reuse something that we make to use down for this area here. So let's just say we need about 7 pieces of coral. That's about 2 per column, and we'll just kind of bunch them all together, and that will probably be just about right. Maybe have a little bit of overlap with some. So just to kind of recap here, well, let's go all the way down to the bottom before we do a recap. One other thing I think that might be nice is just maybe to have a little fish illustration to kind of go in this blank spot here. Now, I definitely don't encourage you to just fill all of your white space. Having some white space is nice, but I think maybe just having a small fish here would be just kind of nice to help break up this kind of column visually, so it doesn't feel like it all totally goes together. Just have something a little more organic than these very straight looking lines that we have here. So we'll go ahead and say that we want at least 1 illustration of fish here as well. So we need 1 or 2 fish, we need a sea turtle, we need 10 icons, and we need 7 pieces of coral. So one of the easy things to kind of start out with is, let's just go ahead and kind of start knocking out one of those right away. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the sea turtle. We're going to kind of do all the coral at once. The sea turtle is going to be handled a little bit differently. So I'm going to use a photo as a kind of reference for how I'm going to draw that. So we're going to come up here to File, and we're going to place a picture of a sea turtle that we have inside of our project files. So if you just go to File, Place, and then go into those reference files, into your images, you see sea turtle right there. So we'll go ahead and place that. And then we'll just drag this over here to the side. And he's obviously way too big, so let's kind of scale him down a little bit. And then we'll just kind of zoom in here and start working. Now, so far, all of my layout has been on layer 3, but it's going to be a lot easier for me to start controlling these if I add a new layer for this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer, and we'll just start working from here. If you don't want this to be blue, so you're not confused by your guides layer being blue, you can double click over here to the right, and then just change that just to something else. Go and say okay to that. And then let's just come in here and really get to work. So I'm going to be using the pen tool to create this illustration. And I also know that I'm not going to be able to fit the entire illustration of the sea turtle, since we're just using him kind of in this area here, probably just his head and the fin. I think having a nice contrast would be great. So just to save a little bit of time, I'm not going to illustrate the whole thing. We're just going to do this area right in here. So kind of zoom in here, and we'll just start by kind of laying down a color that we have here in the back. So if I am kind of coming to a situation like this where I know that my next line is going to need to be kind of straight up this way, I can hold down the Alt key, and that'll let me break those anchor handles, and I can just pull that right back there, and then that's going to allow me to kind of start drawing that like it needs to be. But I actually only want to draw to this point so that I can draw this fin over here on the side, or this other leg, whatever sea turtles have. And then we'll come over here and we'll just do kind of the tip of his nose right here. And for the most part, when you're doing something like this, the fewer anchor points, the better. Just because it looks less rippledy. But because this is an organic illustration, you can get away with a lot more than, you know, if you were designing something like a logo where you'd want to have something, you know, really streamlined. So we'll just kind of come in here, and this is probably getting a little far out of how much of this turtle we'll actually be seeing. So I'll just kind of come back up in here and start to finish that off. So just kind of right here where those plates on his shell start to begin, just right in there. So now we've created a path all the way around the outside of our turtle, and I want to go ahead and just give this kind of a base color of sort of this lighter color that we see here. So I'm going to go ahead and eyedrop that. Kind of just this really light greenish color here. And right now, this is behind my picture. So my picture I had placed on that layer 3, so we can just really quickly grab that. I'm just going to hit Control X to cut it, and you can see there is our turtle underneath there. And then we can just, let's just paste this on a new layer that we'll put beneath everything else to paste it in place so that we don't lose the information and the placement of how that overlaps. Hit Control Shift V, and that'll put that picture right back where it was before. And then we'll just go ahead and lock that. And then we can keep drawing on top of the turtle right here. So I'm not going to illustrate every single scale for you, but I'm going to kind of show you my process for it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the eyeball for that lower piece. And then I'm going to come in here and just kind of start working on his head. And what I want to do is just kind of make some really geometric shapes for these pieces of his skin. So he has very scaly skin. I really want that to come across in the illustration. And you can see kind of how I'm trying to stay outside or inside of those kind of darker lines so that we're able to see that color underneath him. So I'm just really quickly kind of just clicking around without trying to get anything too very perfect. We'll kind of zoom in just to be able to see that a little bit better, and really just making sure that I'm keeping that outside edge maintained, and just kind of closing each one of those paths up as we draw this out. And maybe we could do a little bit of work around his eye area. So just kind of come in here and We'll skip those scales for now. We'll be able to do more of those in a moment. And what I want to do is kind of change all the colors of these plates. And let's just kind of pick one of those darker colors you see there. So I'll go ahead and let's just kind of pick something just right along that color there. And then we can turn back on our main path just to see the contrast. So that looks pretty good. I think that main path could be a little bit darker though. So let's go ahead and just come in here, or excuse me, a little bit lighter. I'll just double click that and let's drag this up to a really kind of light color, just so it's kind of closer to what we were seeing on the actual turtle, just with that light color underneath. And then for the eye, I just want to kind of come in here. That's kind of the base for the eye, but I really want to capture all of these beautiful folds that he has, just the wrinkly old look that we have for this guy. So I'm just gonna kind of come in here, let's make sure that path gets closed, and draw some of those out. And if you want to create a path and move it, like I'm doing, I can just hold the space bar to do that. So just a kind of a quicker way to work than starting that path over once you've already begun to draw it. And it's okay that they don't overlap perfectly, because we do have that base color there. So that's just going to make it, you know, even more interesting, have even more depth just by kind of really quickly roughing that out. And then we'll just kind of create that shape down there at the bottom. And let's go ahead and do something just kind of for the eye, the actual eye that's kind of sitting in there. And we'll make this much darker. So I'm just hit the I key to shortcut to my eyedropper, and then we'll click. And let's bring this forward just so it does feel like it's kind of obscured. So arrange, bring to front for that piece. And then maybe let's do something just kind of a little bit darker here. And if I want this to be exactly the same size as the eye piece underneath, you can see kind of how those overlapped. You can select both of them, hit Shift M, and that's going to take you into shape builder mode. And we can just hold down Alt and click that area that we want to delete. You can see how that just really quickly got rid of that for us. Let's make this a little bit darker. So maybe just choose that navy color we've been using, and we'll bring that to the front. Control Shift End bracket is going to bring that all the way to the front. And let's go ahead and give him just kind of a nice reflection here. So I'm just going to kind of make, just sort of make up a shape that'll kind of go all the way across the eye, just kind of like this. Maybe have another one that's slightly different. And we'll select both of those and turn it white. And then just come in here to our transparency, and we'll turn the opacity down to about 50%. So it's kind of a nice little reflection on his eye there. And now I could just continue to go through the rest of this and create more of those shapes just the same way that we've been doing all along. So I can finish that up in between lessons here, but really quickly I want to show you the way that I want to color these. So I'm going to go ahead and just select the few that we've made here. Then we're going to come over here to our gradient panel. We'll click that and click the gradient, and you can see how that gives us just that standard black and white gradient. Now I want to kind of create a color that goes from a darker color to that gray color we were using. So I'm going to go ahead, select the gray color, and we'll come over here to our swatches and hit New Swatch, and that's going to give me that gray color that we've been using. So that'll just add it over here, and then we'll just kind of come into that same color over here, and we'll turn this down to a lot darker, maybe a little bit greener color. Go ahead and say OK to that, and then we'll add a new swatch in that same way. Go ahead and say OK to that. And you can see now we have those two new swatches. So now we'll select all of those pieces, come over here to our gradient tool, and for the white we'll do our lighter color. So you just double click that, and sometimes it takes a second to pop up, especially when you're working with a large image. And right now we only have black and white as our options. So if you want to mix those colors by hand, you would want to go up there and change it to CMYK. But since we added those as swatches, I can just come over here. We'll choose the lighter gray for the white, and then I'll double click over here on the black and just give that a second to pop back up for me. And then we'll choose that darker gray for the other side. So you can see that now this has a really interesting look. Just feels like much more dynamic and true to life for what this turtle actually looks like. So just coming down here to my layers, I'll turn back on that bottom color, and you can see that once I come in here and draw all of those scales for the turtle, it's really going to look beautiful and fleshed out. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that up in between lessons, and in our next lesson I'm going to show you how to draw a few other pieces using some different techniques. So we'll come back in the next lesson with our turtle finished up and then learn some new things.